the movie opens with you hanging upside down. Is there any movie trickery, or were you really just suspended upside down for several takes?
I was really suspended upside down by what was essentially the Bulgarian Secret Service, ex-Secret Service guys, who basically just had me strung up from the trees, hanging upside down. But you know what's funny? I always love doing those scenes. I always think they are like I love fight scenes, action scenes, stunt scenes. I just think they're so much fun to do. And when you get to do stuff like that in real life, so yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. But it was for real.
Awesome. That's really cool. And I really enjoy your character in this film because he's certainly growing into being a leader for his group, but he's very resistant of that idea. What did you like about that kind of the back and forth that Southern faces there?
Yeah, I felt that Southern was really a guy who was fairly inexperienced, thrown into a very, very difficult circumstance. And essentially, when he's sent his orders by his commanding officer, I wanted the audience to feel like this was almost an impossible task, and the fact and that he really and these guys really may not make it through. And I wanted the audience to know that there was real danger ahead. And so when he kind of finds himself, he finds his inner strength, he finds um his responsibility and his drive to look after these guys around him, that the audience is on that journey with him, that he might make it, he might not, but he's doing his best, and through that he will hopefully make it work.
Yeah, and the timing is so interesting too because this takes place right around D-Day and like concurrently to that. And that is such an iconic moment in World War II. So to be telling this kind of side story that, ties into D-Day, what was most interesting about that kind of historical element to the film?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good point you bring up, and I was going to mention that. Obviously this is the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion, and I would have been interested to know where these guys, which beach they would have probably like been sent near to, I guess, in France, but. It's a responsibility, and lots of people have family members that died during World War II. Lots of people know, people that were affected. I personally, my grandfather, my mum's father was a paratrooper, like this guy, Airborne Division, and my dad's dad was in the planes bombing the Japanese during World War II, and his plane actually went down, and he almost died. So it's very important that when you play these characters, you play them to the best of your ability. You don't take a soft shortcut where you could where you just want to take a fall. If you have to take a fall, take a fall. If you have to take a hit, take a hit. Like if it makes it look more real, that's what is best for the movie. So I tried to bring as much of my personal relationship to World War II that I could to this film.
Yeah, you mentioned that personal connection with your family. Is that what really drew you to Murder Company?
Yeah, it really was, and specifically the fact that my grandfather was in the Paris. He literally landed in Dresden. He was in Dresden for a while. He was stationed there. And I remember him talk about how rough, tough, and mean it was. It was really not an easy time. And my other grandfather would talk me. I don't want to go too graphic into detail, but my other grandfather would talk about when he was bombing the Japanese. The Americans were landing on the shoreline, and he said you would look out of the plane and you would see a sea of red along the beach where these guys were just getting shot to death. Like it was just a sea of blood essentially all up the coast. And he said it's just a horrific image. So it's very important that people remember that this was not that long ago. This was 80 years ago. Like it's very important that we, remember where we come from, what our background is, what our history is, like how lucky we are to have the freedom we have today.
Yeah, that's a great point, and this film doesn't go about glamorizing it either. You have some really good lines throughout this film. The one that really stuck with me was, "You really think God wants any part of this?" Like wow. Can you speak to just the film's portrayal of war? Because sometimes with these action movies, it can almost be kind of fetishizing the violence, but this film does not go that route.
Yeah, I think it's very important to mention Shane Taylor, our director. You know, Shane was very clear that this was his vision for the film was that this was a group of guys thrown into a very, very difficult circumstance. And, you know, to talk of Shane, like he's a sports guy. You know, Shane is a guy who works for ESPN. He knows everything there is to know about sports. And I think he kind of saw these guys like they were a sports team, like they were you know, a sports team going up against another sports team. And I don't think Shane wanted to glamorize what it's like in war at all. He wanted you to feel the camaraderie, the connection these guys have, the connection that they would give up their lives for each other. But he also wanted the audience to understand that this was real danger, you know, and that anybody could die at any given moment.
Yeah, and one of the aspects of the film I also enjoyed was just the camaraderie of the troops, the interplay between them. You
Yeah.
and Pooch Hall have some really fun scenes with each other. How was it working with him?
I loved working with Pooch. You know, Pooch worked with John Voight, and Pooch would always tell me stories that what John Voight was like, and what a great guy he was, and or is, and how he loved working with him. He worked with Liev Schreiber as well, so he Pooch worked with some really fantastic actors, and he's a very very experienced person. And on top of that, Pooch is very good at finding the comedy and the lightness in a scene and the ease of a scene to then turn it into the darkness of a scene as well. Like he has a brilliant mind actually. So I hope going forward Pooch starts writing and directing because he really has the mind for it, and I think that's where we connected most was you know on the level that he's a filmmaker as much as maybe Shane is, you know.
That's really incredible. And another cool aspect of this movie, this types of film, is just seeing all the elements of the 40s, the old weapons, the uniforms. What was your favorite aspect of really getting into that time period?
Yeah, I think for me the most important part of getting into that time period was the language. You know, people didn't speak quite the same as they did today, and obviously I was playing an American, so it was important for me that I gave like a 40s feel to the character, a 40s American feel, a Midwestern guy who lives out in the middle of nowhere, has not really been outside of his own state much, has definitely not traveled abroad. And so he's wide-eyed. And we tried to add a lot of little things in here and there, like improvisational things where we were talking about like which baseball team had won what, or who movie stars were. And so we try to bring the audience into the time period as much as we could through the language, and I tried to do it also with the accent.
Yeah, you really pulled it off. And you were in another war movie I really enjoyed recently, Medieval with Ben Foster.
Yeah.
What stood out about that experience? Because that's a very different movie than this.
Yeah, it is a very different film. You know, I loved making Medieval. That was actually made in the Czech Republic, and we made Murder Company in Bulgaria. I um I was very grateful to work with Ben because I've always loved him as an actor. You know, he's very good in Hell and High Water, and he's just known to be one of the sort of best actors around right now. So when I got the chance to play his brother, I just like jumped at the opportunity, and I love the director on that film. He's just the most wonderful person, and it was a very important story to the Czech people about Jan Žižka, who obviously was one of only 5 generals to never lose a battle. You know, he may have lost his eye, but he never lost a battle. So I loved making that film, and I similarly with the camaraderie, I loved the guys on it. You know, we were all in the gym at night together, and Magnus Samuelsson, former world's strongest man, was teaching me how to do a proper bench press and stuff like that. So it was great.
That's really wonderful. And then my last question for you: you had a very memorable run with the Royals, where you played Prince Liam for 4 seasons. You mostly done movies, so I was curious, what really stood out about just being the same character for such an extended amount of time? Because that's relatively unique in your career.
Yeah, you know, I really enjoyed the Royals because I like to develop the character, and I really thought Mark Schwann's writing was excellent. You know, he developed the characters really, really well, and he adapted them to our personalities. I think Mark realized I wanted to make the character probably a bit more serious on the Royals than in the first season. Like I mean, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I wanted to embrace the drama, embrace the pain of the character, embrace the edge of his personality, that his dad's dead and he's gonna fight and he's gonna get revenge. Like I wanted that to come through, and I wanted to play that part. So Mark wrote a really fantastic arc for me. Obviously, I was really disappointed that we didn't wrap the show up properly. Like I didn't feel, but those things are out of an actor's hands. You can only do what you're asked to do, and I was very grateful for the run of the show, and I mean audiences have loved it, and I've met lots of people that have seen it and really enjoyed it.